You're listening to Raiding the Fringe with Poda, Ostinius, Nehpets, and Dr. Lee. From ancient civilizations to the cutting edge of science, from exploring the outer reaches of space to the Atlantean depths, we discuss the topics of the unknown and the possibilities of the bizarre. Are you hungry to expand your horizons? Come get your fill as we raid the fringe.
Well, thank you guys for coming back to another episode of Raiding the Fringe. We are here, as always, with Dr. Lee.
Hello.
Ostinius.
Hello.
And Poda.
Sup?
You have me, Nehpets, as the host today, and we are going to talk about an interesting topic, cloning.
Woo!
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, what kind of things can you come from cloning? Like, can you clone yourself? Can you clone animals? Has it been done? Probably has.
Well, I'll kick it off.
Yeah, you kick it off.
Oh, okay.
Cloning. Yes, it has been done multiple times. You know, it starts with the origins of 20 or so years ago with Dolly the sheep, the first actual clone that was ever brought to realization. It seems like such a, minor feat to clone a sheep that is really didn't matter. The only thing that Dolly the sheep was really mattered about was that it was a clone.
Right, because the sheep all look the same.
Yeah, I mean, who cares about a goddamn sheep? But, the ramifications of the cloning process and what it could possibly bring to the table is a vast and crazy subject. I mean, it opens the doors for possibilities of cloning humans eventually. I mean, cloning other animals, cloning body parts, cloning, or recreating extinct species and all sorts of things. And I mean, people have come from the subject from all different angles, talking about ethics or morality and whether or not cloning is moral. And, first off, that's kind of where I would like to start the subject. I mean, morality, the ethics of cloning. Do you guys think that it's a moral thing? Do you think it should be done?
Well, for me, I think one of the major morality points that would interest me is the argument as to the human soul. Because with cloning, like, normally I'd say I have no morality issues thinking about, you want to make two sheep out of one, you want to make a new human. Generally, with our process of cloning, we're just taking the materials and growing a new person. So they're still growing up and having their childhood and everything. They're literally another person. They just happen to be exactly like the donor. But then the question is do they have a unique soul, or are they copied from the original?
I'm really glad you brought this up, because this is one of my top hitting points, man.
Well, with me, from what I've gathered, again, most of my views are pretty biblical, but there's a difference between growing a human and a human coming forth from a womb. So I think the ones that were actually birthed have souls, and if we were to ever create a substantial product that is a exact copy of somebody else that wasn't coming from the womb, that is coming from us playing God themselves.
Well, you got to think, I mean, technically, in a clone, let's take Dolly the sheep, for example.
Okay.
Dolly wasn't grown in a test tube. She wasn't floating around in a vat of liquid that they grew her in. No, it was an embryo that was created from the essential same DNA, recreated, inserted into a womb, gesticulated, grew, and was born, and from then on was an exact DNA replicate from the donor.
So we created the actual egg, though, itself.
We created the embryo, as it were.
Yeah. We created the fertilized egg.
Okay.
But it was still grown in a womb, born from a womb.
Okay, well, then again,
Okay, now, going off of the fact that if it's artifice, it has no soul, but if it's natural, it does. Subject A and clone both grow up, they both develop personalities and interact and become human in every way. If we're talking about human here, then how would you be able to tell who's got the soul?
Yeah, that's my thing. I
mean,
mean,
probably the person with the most defect, because as humans, we can't create perfectly. There's always going to be something wrong.
Well,
yeah, but we're not perfect to start with.
But at that point, you're also talking nature versus nurture. Okay, let's say sample A is the original, and sample A was born of these parents and grew yada, yada, yada. Sample B was taken from sample A, but fertilized within another womb, another set of parents, as it were. And they're not going to be exactly the same. It's not going to be the exact same stimuli, even through the fertilization process and growth process within the womb. Say sample A, while they were in the womb, the mom ate salads a lot, and then sample B, the mom ate buffalo chicken a lot. That alone is enough to start a differentiation as the growth happens. So it becomes a nature versus nurture. So sample B is not going to be the exact same as sample A just because of the stimuli and the outward, differences from sample A.
Well, I mean, what about the twins that, of course, they were in the same body as twins, but when they were given up for adoption, we talked about this in an earlier episode.
Oh, we did have a twins episode, yeah.
That we, come together like that. They were exactly the same, so are we saying that
that occurs frequently, but it doesn't occur every time. It's not a guarantee.
Well, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I'm just saying.
I don't think it would be the same as that because they didn't.
I mean, they're exact copy.
No, No, twins, it's the exact same copy. And like I was saying.
A clone would be an exact same copy.
Yeah, but with the mother, you still have that same, the mom eats a salad. Both twins are still eating that same salad, so to speak.
But I disagree with that food analogy because just because they're eating something different wouldn't change the actual DNA of the fetus.
It wouldn't change the DNA, but it would
change the development.
It's an outward force.
And plus,
that changes
the fetus itself would take
slightest.
what it needs from the body. So it's, okay, if one person eats a salad, but they're still going to get the same nutrients.
No, but you find that if
unless
a mother,
you give it to a crack woman, know what I mean, to have a crack baby.
But if a
that's
mother
different.
is more inclined to eat spicier foods during a pregnancy, then that baby is more inclined to be prone to eat spicier foods as it grows as a human being. And it's that matters in the entire circumstance of that cloning.
I mean, it goes all the way. If we're talking about that, if the mother eats the right food, she can determine the sex that the baby develops into as well.
We're all midwives here.
You're saying having the same DNA, but it alters during the growth stage?
Because it's not determined.
Have they accomplished that in cloning
No,
animals?
but we're also talking about, if we're talking about clones, it goes out the same chromosomes. It would still have an X and X or an X and Y. That would not change.
Oh, yeah.
So the sex, it would be the same sex.
But identical twins have identical DNA also. Because I've seen forensic case files where they could not determine which brother did it because they shared the same DNA.
What happens when it's a brother and a sister, though?
Well, that's fraternal. That's not identical.
Well, then, okay, but I thought, okay.
Yeah.
No, I know the difference between paternal and fraternal, but I was saying, what was the point of...
Oh.
My point is the fact that twins are still gesticulated in the same womb. They're grown in the same circumstances and in the same controlled environment, whereas a clone based, even 20 years apart is not going to be the same at all. It's going to be grown in a different person, which alone has different factors of its developmental growth and stuff, and then different parents, and then you got the nature versus nurture where so say sample A turns out to be a dickhead. He's a freaking jerk because he grew up in an alcoholic, marriage and was beaten as a kid, whereas sample B, although genetically the same, an exact same copy as sample A, was developed in a loving household and only given the best of care and things like that. It's going to end up being a different person.
Which is a great basis for, should this develop, for psychological studies to actually determine how much is nature versus nurture. This would be the only way we could truly crack that egg open and do a scientific study with a control group if we had clones to work with. But then that is a separate ethical question besides the whole question of whether or not it would have a soul, but whether or not a clone is, the full human with the rights to live their own life and not being a control subject, not have a Truman Show kind of thing going on.
Right. Okay, so going back to the initial morality question that you brought up about the soul. We do have religious personnel here on staff today, folks. So
always on staff.
I know, Nehpets, I want you to fully think about this and come up with your rational thought on it all.
Okay.
But first I'm going to attack Poda. Poda, say that there was a baby born this way. It is a clone, but it was, inseminated into another womb and it grew to be a person. this baby is born. Do you believe religiously that it has a soul or not?
I don't know. I believe something would inhabit it because it'd be a vacancy.
So then he just answered yes. He believes it doesn't have a soul.
He didn't say it doesn't have a soul.
Vacant until it gets a soul.
It is a vessel prime for the taking in religious text.
All right, let me follow that up since you've answered with an I don't know. Let me follow this up with this vessel is born. It grows up. It has personality. It has hopes and dreams. It has opinions, loves and hates.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have a soul?
I don't know, because all that can be learned. And that's just with your brain just working the way it does, psychopaths learn to pass as normal people.
If I
So
could,
you're saying psychopaths don't have souls?
No, I didn't say that at all.
if I could sidetrack this just a little bit further, then how do you know we have souls?
Because the God I trust in told me I do. And that goes into consciousness, though. And the term of soul versus the term of spirit, do you coin them as the same term? Or with consciousness, does that mean you have a soul because you're aware with AI? Can we make AI?
I don't know. Do you believe animals have souls?
I haven't really looked into that one. I don't know.
They have consciousness.
Well, they have instinct. That's been proven.
They also have consciousness. They're aware of the world around them.
Mm-hmm.
They make choices based off of stimuli that they have programmed and learned throughout their lives.
Hell, elephants can paint now.
So is instinct stronger than free will? Or is instinct free will? Because if I have the instinct to run, but I choose to stay and fight.
That's your free will.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's how you react to your instincts is what is free will.
Okay, then what's consciousness?
Consciousness is the ability to assess whether or not you have options.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's the ability to analyze your surroundings to any degree.
Okay.
All right. Given the same questions, Nep, do you believe that this born child that is an exact genetic duplicate of another person has a soul?
No. Only on the fact, though, that humans created it. Human themselves created it. Men created this beginning of it. I believe, again, with my colleague Pote over here, that, yeah, something will inhabit it eventually because all these earthbound spirits need places to live. But if a human were to create another human in which is used by science and in a lab, even though they inseminate it into a woman, it still was created by men.
Yeah,
And
but
men,
a man and a woman having sex is still created by man.
No, that's created through a practice in which my God has created to specifically procreate, not a science degree to where men put things in beakers and stuff and create the isotope itself.
But God has given us the ability to learn the science to a point where we can do this, and perhaps He is utilizing us as a tool to create more vessels.
He gave us the knowledge, but men push the limits. So, yeah, you can get the knowledge and the science, but then how far do you push it?
But
Do
who's
you,
to
hold
say
on,
He doesn't
hold
back
on.
us up?
I'm not me. I would say that He does not back up humans creating other humans. It's like this. You can get all the knowledge in the world, and you get that through God. Then you can use it in your own way, thinking that it's good, but it ends up not being very well. And that's the whole process of what, our religion is based on. As in, we were given the ability and we chose to determine what is right and wrong ourselves. And so when we are determined to figure out what is right and wrong with creating another human life throughout the natural means, then yeah, I believe that these things that we created, not through natural means, does not have a soul.
So in turn, you're also saying that people who were not able to have a baby through natural means, who were artificially inseminated, even though it's not a genetic clone,
No,
they don't have souls?
Did those people gather seeds from both a man and woman, or did they create the seed?
Oh, they didn't create. They're not creating
Even
the
with a
clones
clone,
anyway.
they
They got the material
create it.
from the parents.
Okay, then I don't quite understand this this cloning then.
So basically, they take the genetic material from the donor parent,
Okay.
and utilizing that genetic material,
Mm-hmm.
they have the DNA is an exact copy in an egg and a sperm. Am I right?
Yeah.
So you're taking DNA from one person and creating both a sperm and an egg?
Basically. And then as the cell first develops,
That's not natural means. Just letting you know.
No, but it's material from the parent.
But it's not I mean, like,
it's
you don't
not
have
created.
2 different parts. It's almost like...
It's
I'm
just
saying.
altering what's already there.
No, I disagree. I'm sorry. That is not... Yeah, I will not agree with you guys that that's a natural mean. No.
Okay, but artificial insemination, where it's...
If it's taken from one person to the other because they have complications, yes, I do believe that God gives us the ability to use science to make things happen
How
for
can you
people.
discern the two?
Because you're getting one piece from one person and one piece from another, usually from a female and a male. If you're getting both female egg and both male sperm from one person, that is not a natural mean. Humans themselves are not asexual. We don't have that ability. But through cloning and science, we are making us have that ability.
Okay, let me say this then.
A hermaphrodite.
Let's take a
monkey eyes.
a donor egg
Okay.
from a parent who has all, like, going through genetics, their dominant and recessive genes. Let's say we have a donor egg that is all recessive genes, and we have a donor sperm that is all dominant genes. That embryo that grows from that is going to have all of those dominant traits.
Okay.
So let's say we have the genetic makeup material to inseminate an egg, but the egg has been, for lack of a better term, wiped of genetic material, and the only genetic material is getting imbued from said injection.
How was the egg wiped of genetic material?
Chromosomes are removed, and it
By
is
what?
a blank through the means of science.
Oh, but then no, that is not natural.
But having a totally
There
recessive
is no
and a
but.
totally
If
dominant...
the human tampers with these things through scientific, that is not natural. That does not happen. Natural, I thought the definition was that it could happen in nature.
But
Right.
the growth of the embryo, the growth of
No,
that
you're
human...
telling me that you're taking an egg, like what they would do with like a pig's heart, and put dawn on it and make all the cells go away, but the structure of it there, and then implant pig cells to make a new heart.
Okay.
I know you're taking something and stripping it away. You're tampering with it. That's
what
not a
you do with-
natural mean.
That's what you do with artificial insemination as well, though.
Yeah.
You're taking someone who could not
Yes.
naturally give birth because of certain complications or whatever, and you're artificially connecting two things that
I
would
think
never
you
in
guys
nature
aren't
touch.
realizing what I'm saying is, though, that specifically is helping a couple who wants to have children.
So would this.
No, that would be helping a person who wants an exact copy of themselves.
Only if there's
that
a
goes
megalomaniac
into-
that's like, I want to clone
That is
myself.
going into therapeutic cloning, and I don't agree with that either.
Therapeutic cloning?
Yes.
Designer genetics.
Not even that.
Oh,
Well, that's
well.
designer cloning. Therapeutic cloning is where you clone yourself that, hey, I might need eyes later, or I might need this later.
Well, based off
That's
that same-
therapeutic cloning.
Based off that same thing. So you don't believe, they were able to take stem cells and create a human ear on a rat's back. You don't think
I
that's
would.
right either?
Well, either way, I think, now I take a more scientific standpoint, and I'm definitely less religious, and I don't know, I'm agnostic, I wouldn't say I'm atheistic. I don't know if the clone or the original would have a soul per se. I believe, though, if the original has a soul, the clone would also have a unique soul. Because whether or not God is behind this technology or, supporting us with it or not, I believe that it's another vessel with the same opportunities as a natural born would have. And so I believe that if one was granted, it's possible that the other's granted. And until I meet the maker, I won't know the specifics on whether that's true or not.
I agree with that. As far as, I'm not very religious either, but as far as my religious background had grounded me in the understanding of such things, because it's also very vague in the teachings of the Lord, because the Lord is mysterious, coincidentally. That it is opportunistic. There's a baccalaureate of souls, so to speak, that are to be sent to the earth and inhabit the earth, and this would just be another empty vessel for a future soul to inhabit. That's kind of the way that I always saw it. I didn't, not to...
And
Get
either
into the
side of those
theological
could be
debate.
right. There could be a line where there is just too much human interference. Like the raising of babies in the wild, where if they're handled too much by humans, the mother won't touch them.
Oh, yeah.
It could be something like that, where we've meddled too much with our own reproduction, like Nehpets was saying, where, God washes his hands of it. He says, no, you have made an abomination, and I'm not putting a soul into that thing. Yeah. But from a scientific standpoint, from what I would see with these two individuals growing up, whether they're sheep or kittens, or they've done wolves now and horses, upon growing up, from a practical standpoint, I see two perfectly healthy living things that are identical.
Although they aren't really identical. If you talk about it that way and they have to gesticulate and stuff, you're talking 20 or so years apart, these humans. What if you could make a direct clone, blammo, like you get into one vestibule and there's a vestibule on the opposite side of the chamber, and an exact copy of you right at that minute in time comes out, walks out of there, and it's the exact copy of you right there at that second.
Poda, you're shaking your head no.
Kill it immediately. Nope.
Why kill it immediately?
We would have to fight. Well, first off, there can only be one.
There can be only one.
But given what I understand of myself,
there can only be one.
And the fact that I can 100%, prove with the discussion of soul versus consciousness or spirit, just going off scientific theory, like if it just copies my brain, where's the morality in it? Because it has the fractured memories. It has a vague understanding of what emotions are.
Well, what makes you think it actually has your memories?
I'll say, if it's just a genetic copy.
A blank piece of paper doesn't have anything on it.
The synapses in my brain would be copied, which are the pathways of my memories.
Oh, that's true. If you're making a copy of an adult person, then all of the synapses recordings would be there as well. Now
would it just have your memories up to that point, and from then on, different stimuli would branch them off?
And how far back would your memory go?
Well, it would probably go back, assuming that this sci-fi technology we're talking about, boom, you made an instant copy of yourself, is perfect, which until it is, then the scientist is still working on it, and we're not finding out about it yet. So assuming, boom, they've done it, they made a copy clone of you.
I'm talking movie cloning now.
All of your current memories would be copied, as well as your current memories are. They'd have the same trouble remembering things that you would.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He would want to kill him.
Right. You both would agree.
I don't think it would have a soul. At that point, I would go to kill it.
Yeah. No, my clone wouldn't know if it's the clone or not. If we both walk out at the exact same time, unless there's someone there to say it was you.
No, I think the clone would know, because they'd be like, well, I walked into the chamber on the left, and now I'm walking out on the right. What the fuck?
Well, I'm also dyslexic, so it could be a bad day.
He's got body dysmorphia.
He would at least question a little bit, am I the clone? Both of them would do that.
Yeah.
Especially if I put you both under teacups and switched you around very quickly.
But the part, if we're getting into cloning and stuff, the scarier part is like having designer babies, is what someone brought up a little earlier too.
Or
like
just messing with genetics.
Yeah,
the CRISPR.
You just go and you're like, I want my baby to have this specifically from the father, or this specifically from the mother.
Okay, that's manipulating genes. Would you still feel the same way about...
no.
I mean, that's more along the lines of the artificial insemination than it is the exact cloning.
The CRISPR actually, I thought it messed with the DNA strand itself to turn things off and turn them on or off.
The CRISPR does, but that's not the only way that they perform it. Because CRISPR can actually... It uses... virus and bacteria activity to turn on and off certain pieces in the DNA. It's how they were able to finally map the human genome. But there's also a process when that egg first splits into 2 and then 4 and then 8, like we've all seen, while it's still in that really early stage of 2 and 4, different options are in those. Mm-hmm. And the one that wins is the one that we become. Mm-hmm. So in those early stages, they can go in and pre-select and remove the bad ones.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
So,
with
like you've got dominant versus recessive, recessive versus recessive, and dominant versus dominant, and you've got all 4 possibilities. You take out the ones that are undesirable, all that's left is the good ones for you to develop into.
I guess I can say the same as Poda. I guess I wouldn't have a comment on that because I have not researched that enough with my views in what I believe in. So like that kind of thing, I don't think we should tamper with stuff. I believe that people that want to be artificially inseminated because they cannot have children, that is an ability that we've gained through medical marvel. But when we start pushing the line and actually tweaking stuff ourselves to either get a desired outcome, like, or something like that, that's where I kind of fall off. I don't really.
I mean, that's going. Okay, well, I'm not gonna.
That could also be accomplished.
Refrain from what? I mean, like you could still.
I'm going to refrain from commenting on that because I think that goes along the same lines of picking and choosing. It's the same reason I don't believe in the Bible as of right now is because you can pick and choose what you think is good stuff in the Bible and what's bad stuff. So we're going to ignore the bad stuff and pick the good stuff. That's the exact same with this genetic thing and a baby is you get to pick and choose what you want and what you don't want.
When did I say that I pick and choose?
I'm not saying that directly towards you guys. I'm
Yeah.
saying that as a blanket statement for.
Yeah, but I mean, within the confines of this conversation, though, I don't think that we've picked and choose, anything of our statements from that aspect. I'm just saying I don't have enough research nor authority. I have no authority to be like 100%. I'm just giving you my opinions on things. You know what I mean?
As far as genetic meddling goes, that can also be done with selective breeding. We've done that for a lot longer.
Dog breeds. Oh my gosh.
Dog breeds don't exist except for us picking who mates with whom to control the genetic outcomes. That's not direct cloning as we know it now, but that is basically a prehistoric cloning.
Yeah, that's genetic tampering.
It is us finding the traits we like and encouraging that in the breeding and creating our own thing. So whether or not we can do it instantly with cloning, that has been done the slow and natural way.
Yeah.
To a great degree.
That's
the domestication of the chicken.
In evolution, I mean, in general, I mean, there were no dogs. You had wolves, and this wolf has the shorter snout, and this wolf has a longer one. So, hey, guess what? These two wolves have a shorter snout. So, I want a domesticated breed or whatever that is more prone to having a shorter snout. You mate the two with the shorter snout, and you get another.
Pug.
Yeah. You get another breed, and eventually, over the years and years and years, only through that breeding process, you can modify that animal. That's through natural means, but it's still along the same lines.
That's still not cloning.
Cloning's just faster.
Well, we're also talking genetic modification.
But
that isn't cloning at all, no.
We've already switched, though. We're talking about the good old sci-fi modern instant switch cloning.
Well, okay, let me bring up another fact. It has been shown, you could trace ancestry through the Y chromosome in males because it's the same Y chromosome that gets passed down from father to son and, so on and so forth. So somehow weirdly, are we some sort of weird clone of our fathers before us? Having that same genetic Y chromosome?
We are always our father's son.
Poetically speaking, yes. Mm-hmm. But literally, no.
But it's that same genetic marker.
Right.
No, but it has no human tampering. That's on my point.
Yeah. But that's an evolutionary cloning, using my fingers as quotes.
But the commonplace conception of cloning is not just the Y chromosome, it's the entire DNA sequence is being copied.
Right, an exact genetic.
So poetically, yes, we are clones of our fathers, but scientifically speaking, no.
Man, I should be a lot skinnier and more drunk.
I'll give you nature and nurture.
I'll
nature you with the back of my hand and you can nurture your face.
All right. To definitively answer your question to me, I know I said I don't know, but it really is, I'm going to have to go with I don't know 100% because I can theorize, I can talk.
Well, that's the thing, it's a discussion.
But that's something that is improvable to me at this point in time. So it's really hard for me to actually coalesce better statements or inquiry. But as far as the science and ethics go, I find that vastly interesting. Like, for example, the mouse that had the ear grown on it. Everyone's like, oh, we did it. So we've determined that lab mice have no rights and haven't since we started using them.
Animals don't have rights.
Peter's pissed.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, the way we treat animals and what we do with all animals, they don't really actually have rights. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have Right, but only the cute ones do.
So, given
Yeah, that's so true. And it's sad. It's sad to say that. And that's
Okay.
what I'm saying, too. Because we talk about animals having souls, and people don't know if animals have souls.
And that-
bleeds into it. Anyway, sorry.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, animal clones have no rights. Therefore, should be no discussion of ethics. They are there for our entertainment, pleasure, and use. Human clones, though, with the therapy, like you were talking about, Nep, having a clone of you in a vat somewhere that you can pull organs from in case you need them later, the ethical standpoint on that, disregarding, not even bringing in soul and spirit into the discussion, but just the thought of a human, DNA, like by DNA, it's proven that's a human. Scientifically, that's what we know. Does it have rights?
If you have like a backup,
Well, animals don't have rights.
Like a parts
They have to
factory?
be cute.
Would it be would it be considered an animal, even though it's 100% scientifically proven to be a human?
not if it didn't have oh man,
Well,
if it
if
didn't
you-
have a mind and it was just floating in a vat, like as your personal reservoir for spare parts.
So what? Grow it
No.
without a brain and then have a computer do all the processes in which the body is, like pump the blood, breathe the air.
I don't
Or
think
take
we-
out parts of the brain so all of the involuntary muscles still operate as normal.
Lobotomy? So we lobotomize every clone?
Well, it wouldn't be a lobotomy. Okay, let's put forth this theory then. Say we do get to the point where we clone an actual human being, and say the soul is an important part of a human being. When they grow up, when they are born and stuff, they will eat because they are told to. They will sleep because they are told to, but they will not develop a personality. Do we see any evidence of this being a potential for the clone? So say, we got an exact same POTA growing up. No, and
I
of
was
course,
making
of course,
murder gestures.
yeah, original POTA still saying it's got to die, but clone POTA is it's kind of like you've just turned off. You're just standing there. You're breathing. Your autonomous systems are still active, but you do not do anything for yourself. You eat because you're supposed to, and you sleep because you need to, but you're not. You don't have a favorite food. You don't have a movie you like to watch. You're just there, a vessel, as you said. That, I would say, if that wound up being the case upon cloning, I would not determine that as a human. That is just body parts. That is a human clone. It would become its own definition,
It would be just as good as that ear on the rat's back.
which I don't think the rat could use. Could it hear really well?
No, it wasn't connected to an ear canal. It was just the lobe around. You know what I mean? It was just the ear
But
itself.
on conversely, I think if that clone did grow up and showed signs of personality traits and was in fact a POTA Junior, then I think that inherently we would accept it as human. It would gain the rights of a human. I mean, especially if we're still using wombs and not test tubes, it will have a social security number and everything,
Yeah, it wouldn't even have to be called POTA. It could be Samuel. You know what I mean?
Well,
And it would just look exactly like you and be exactly like you.
As soon as a serial number shows up, it's paying taxes. And that's another vote. So I can understand the usefulness in that.
What happens if you're charged the taxes of your clone?
And see, that's legal court documents.
No, it would be a different.
Can you sue yourself?
It would be a different
exact
social
copy
security
of
number.
yourself.
No, it'd be a different social security number and stuff like that. It wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. At that
entity.
point, it's not yourself.
Yeah, at that point, it's a different entity.
Well, given the lobotomized nation, a
lobotomized clone nation?
Troops.
You're talking us, where there's
Oh.
like some secret basement that has an exact copy of everybody.
Classic.
But they're kooky.
No.
Okay, I personally feel like this episode would not have everything it needs if we didn't mention Star Wars because of clones. Because they literally started the army with clones, and which is, I'm sure, basically what you were leading up to, POTA.
Are clone troops, will they ever become veterans?
Well, yeah, any ones who've been
Not
through
with
the
the
experience
VA's
of war.
help.
But if they're clones bred specifically for that task and are not the original person, given the ethics of that, what the legal documentation stands for as what those would be, would they ever be able to leave the army?
Dude,
Is
Or
it
are
the
they
property
just
of the
cannon
government?
fodder? Yeah.
I would
They're a
believe
weapon.
that we would honestly have a full robot army before we have a full clone army.
Oh, for sure.
Only because it is cheaper and it's not a big mess.
You don't have to feed a robot.
All of a sudden you're like, did Johnny die or was it Johnny 2? You don't know.
Johnny 5 is alive.
As far as robotics goes, I'm
How
scared of
far
Japan.
did they take the cloning?
But as far as clones go, I think that if there was a clone army and it was designed and raised by basically a government entity, which is what it would have to be, the government would definitely classify them as a weapon, as property, not as a person. They would not be allowed to retire. They'd probably get retired the 6-gun way.
Although if we're talking, the futuristic sci-fi automatic clone.
Well, yeah, then it didn't matter.
Then every time, like, okay, we're about to send you out to battle. You're hitting the front lines, Johnny. Let me take this blood sample, and then he goes out. If he gets killed in the action, then back at home base, whoop. Oh, hey, Johnny, you're about to go on this next mission, and he's like, oh yeah, I remember about to go on a mission. You know
the
what
only
I mean?
way they could do this is if they saved.
Let me
money.
give you a tip on what not to do.
If they saved money on not giving each one of these clones an actual weapon, but using them as brute force, as like a ant. Kind of technique where where there's
just
so
overrunning.
Yeah,
like
they're like,
Z-Nation.
we're giving you a knife, and it doesn't matter if you die because I can literally make 15 of you, and we're just going to do it. And here's a knife. It would cut down the cost, so they could possibly do it
For that sole purpose of just, we have brute force now.
Yeah.
But what about the really good clones in battle that have gained all that experience?
It's not an RPG.
Well,
Every time they come back from mission successfully, another blood sample. Okay, Johnny.
But it wouldn't have the memories.
I don't know, man.
Then they would have the muscle memories in the synapse.
Would it be cheaper? Would it be cheaper to just kill that clone and make another one?
yeah. Well, that's
This one has PTSD.
stuff that we wouldn't know unless we could do it. We don't know how expensive that process would be. I mean, if we want to go down the science fiction road, it could become super dirt cheap, or it could be super expensive and hard to do. But as far as your question about what about the clones that have more memory and more battle experience, well, they would obviously become the generals and the captains, and they would be the troop leaders.
Oh,
I have to
leading
disagree
troops
with that.
of their own.
They would probably be the sergeants. There ain't no way they're going to make a clone a general.
Okay, well, you're right. They probably would not go as high as general. There probably is a glass clone ceiling.
But 100
Who's to say?
5-year
Is that
war.
glass cloned?
5-year war. So over many hundreds of generations down on those clones, with them keeping and adding all that experience and knowledge, why not just put it into one? Could you copy in the
now
brain?
you're-
You mean you're talking a USB stick full of accumulated knowledge?
Well, if we're talking about lobotomized clones that are a property weapon that only take commands, it would be a flesh robot.
Right.
Might as well just make real robots.
But
Okay.
even in Star Wars, after a while, the clone copies got copied so often that the genetic material was falling apart, and they had to stop using clones for their armies.
Stormtroopers.
The stormtroopers started off as clones too. I mean, they
were
through the first 2 movies. I think they were still clones, but
The multiplicity effect.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the multiplicity effect. Eventually, a copy of a copy of a copy has started deteriorating, and by the time the 3rd movie rolled out, they were already switched to hiring and stealing babies.
But if you're
and
talking
training.
a clone of a clone, yeah. But if you have that genetic makeup of the original and you can continually clone from the original source.
Yeah, what about a government that has completely
but
legalized
they lost
cloning?
Django.
Completely legalized cloning for military purposes, where you, once you reach age 18, have to donate genetic material to the government. So you have a clone soldier copy of you in the government
even though
to
you're-
fight for, to help your economy and your government, to where you don't actually have to die in battle.
So you're not even drafted. It's your clone that's going to
Yeah,
the fight.
but as a citizen, you are obligated by the government to donate.
That's interesting.
And then if that clone dies, you'll find out about it because, hey, we need another sample.
That's interesting. How would you feel if you found out that you were cloned, your clone went to battle and was murdered, and you need to give another sample?
Not as good as I felt if I got cloned and then he won.
But what if this clone showed up at your house one day?
Because it doesn't want to keep going back out, and then you'd have to eventually prove that it is the crappier one because of the clone multiplicity effect.
You guys have just written a movie.
I would vote for a bill to be passed that all my clones have to have a
Multiple
body cam
soldiers.
because I want to see their last moments. I want to see what they went through every time to see if it completely.
Or you could just,
It's the clone every
I
time.
want to
Like
hear
say it's the
myself
5th clone,
screaming in death.
but
or just join the army.
I just want to watch myself.
they
go to
already
the
told me
bathroom.
no.
Well, that's an interesting fact.
24/7
We could
body
talk
camera.
more and more about clones, and One aspect that I didn't get to say about cloning or clones, period, is this one tree plot in America. It's one of the heaviest plants and living things on Earth, and it's actually a forest, but each one of those trees in that forest are an exact clone of itself because it's the same root system, and it's almost like branches, but each branch is an actual tree, and it's a whole forest.
It's all is it clones or is it just the same?
It's just genetically the same throughout every tree. But it's technically the trees are its branches.
But they're physically connected,
yes.
right? So it's not clones
so
much
cloned,
as one entity.
But they are cloned themselves if we saw and tried to test for them, without knowing. I thought it was this neat fact.
Like if you buried your hand and your fingers are sticking up out of the ground.
Kind of like that. Well, I thought it was kind of neat.
That is neat.
Yes, so we'll have final thoughts here. We'll go with Poda. What's your final thoughts on this cloning debate?
It's a very fascinating subject, and I find the science interesting. I almost went on a tangent about CRISPR because that brings in animal-human hybrids, and that can be another discussion.
That could be definitely
talk about that.
Manticores can be an episode someday, guys. I promise. Okay, Chris, what are your last thoughts?
I believe it to be a very fascinating subject, and it is still something that is, this stuff is being done right here, right now. Poda, what you were mentioning about, a future army of clones and stuff, the way you just put it is not an unheard of fantasy. Like, it is possible within our lifetimes for something like that to be happening. Celebrities clone their pets so they're never without pets. Mm-hmm. And, it's a very, very viable subject. And I don't know. I really enjoy the subject and the discussion, especially when it gets down to morals and ethics. I think it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. How about you, Lee?
We've come such a long way already with clones. I'm really excited to see how far we can get before I die so I can see all this incredible stuff happening. It's a wonderful opportunity to open up all sorts of studies on the difference between nature and nurture and what would happen in certain circumstances and stuff. But unfortunately, I don't see us ever actually being able to make full use of this cloning technology other than maybe making organs because of all of the ethical dilemmas. There's always going to be the people that are offended and the people that are okay with it. And the people that are offended always have the louder voice. And so I think our own advances are going to be held back by what we're afraid is wrong for what is wrong, but that's different for every person. And so a lot of what we're going to be able to do, we're not going to be able to do because we're going to hold ourselves back, except for that screwball psychopath scientist who says, I'm going to show you all someday.
That weird crackpot Frankenstein.
And I'm not afraid to go on the record as saying, way to go, that guy. It's like, if I don't morally want anything to happen to my friends because I know you guys, but I'm not opposed to eating a chicken I never met. So if we're creating clones for studies, then I would be ethically totally fine with us treating them how we need to further our society and our knowledge of everything. But I don't think that'll ever happen.
Yes. And so anyways, I guess I'll give Poda one more chance since he barely talks at all.
Just other topics of discussion in cloning with genetic modification and probability and usefulness. I think flesh would be cheaper than robotics. And we could
disagree with that.
It would be going for the superhuman aspect.
You have to feed humans. That's the biggest
and
thing.
Like robots, you can just go out to a foundry, pour it, and then just make some electrical, things to it. But
limited resources, renewed resources.
Renewed resources, but to a point. You don't want to have a clone army that is starved. They're not going to be very effective at all. You're not only starved, you have to worry about food, you have to worry about shelter, you have to worry about illnesses.
We can just feed them Soylent clones.
Which are all very valid points, guys. Very valid. I'd like to thank you guys for listening in, and like always, why don't you put a comment down and ask us some personal questions. Thank you. And I'd like to have everybody say goodbye in their own little way.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Kill it immediately.
Thank you, guys. And this is Nep signing out. Well, we'd like to thank you for joining us today's episode. If you'd like, you can directly contact us with any questions at ratingthefringe@brainforger.com. We'd really appreciate it if you would give us a like, share, or follow, and comment on any of the episodes that you've listened to. We're on Facebook, Spotify, or anywhere else that you get your podcast fix. Thank you for being here with us while we raid the fringe.